Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Advocacy Through Social Media and Community Engagement. Just a couple of reminders as we get started. Please stay on mute during the session. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. But as much as possible, please try to save them to the end unless they're technical questions or you didn't understand something that was said. You have control of the layout of your screen. You can change the view in generally the upper right-hand corner to gallery or speaker view, whatever you prefer. And then you can also kind of drag the line to make it larger or smaller, and speaker view will only show you the person speaking at the time. And now I'll turn it over to Jill Bucaro and Jacqueline Hine, who are going to be taking you through the session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. And thank you everybody for being here. Just to make sure you are all in the right spot this morning, we're talking about advocacy through social media and community engagement. And we are here from the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office. And today we're going to talk a little bit about our story, how we've kind of built up our social media platforms and how we've used our social media presence to really leverage and engage our community and engage in conversations around advocacy and systemic reform. So just a little bit more specifics about what we want to talk today, what we want to talk about. So we'll do some introductions here in a second, but we are going to talk a lot about just how our office has grown in the last couple of years, how we've expanded our mission to include more holistic defense services, more community advocacy and engagement, and again, how we've utilized our social media presence to make that known in our community and to really further our office's overall mission and goals. We also are going to talk about just how we communicate our identity, the work that we do in the office, the things that we see and bear witness to, and how we again leverage that for advocacy across our system here in Montgomery County. We will get into the nitty gritty a little bit about social media stuff. So things like branding, content creation, consistency in posting, how to post, where to post, when to post. I imagine that most of us in this room do not have a social media or marketing or business background. And I also imagine that most of your offices, like our office, do not have the budget or the bandwidth to employ a professional marketing or social media person or firm. So we do want to get into some of that, those tips and tricks, so that if expanding your office's social media is something you guys are really interested in, that you'll be able to take some really practical examples away and just some good ideas around this kind of content. We will save some time at the end for question and answer. I'm really hopeful that we have some people in this room whose offices have also done some work on social media or expanded your social media. We would love to hear from you and have you share with our group some of the things that are working for you, maybe some of the things that didn't work so well. And then we do want to leave some time at the end for questions, like just specific questions, or, if people want some clarification or something like that. Like Jamie said, we are going to zoom through content at the beginning today and save discussion for the end. So if you think of a question or you have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat, and Jamie's going to monitor that for us, and we will address those questions first and then open it up to everybody at the end. Also, in Sched, we uploaded today's slides, and we also uploaded a one-pager that really just kind of summarizes some of the key points and the highlights today. So check out those downloads as well. So with that, we will go ahead and get started with intros. So my name is Jill Bucaro. I'm a social worker by trade, but I currently serve as the manager of Holistic Defense Services in the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office. So there are several different Montgomery counties across the United States, but our Montgomery County is located in Southwest Ohio. It's where the city of Dayton is. So I don't know if you guys have heard of Dayton, home of the Wright brothers, of the UD Flyers, go UD. But that is where we are. So our office serves the whole county. So that is the city of Dayton, but that entails a lot of suburbia as well. So we are present in the 7 municipal courts in our county. Our office serves people obviously in our Montgomery County Common Pleas Court, our felony court, and in our juvenile court as well. We are an office of around 100 people. So we have about 50 attorneys and 30 to 40-ish support staff. A little bit about me and what I do. So I manage our team of social workers, which we have 6 social workers that take the lead on mitigation for our higher level cases. And then also we have social workers that help provide kind of basic case management services to our clients, both in the pretrial phase of their cases and post-disposition while they're on probation. The overarching goals of our social work program are to reduce the number of days that people spend incarcerated and to reduce recidivism. I also oversee our client engagement team, which is historically what you would think of as like an intake team. They're the people that are present at every single arraignment and inside of jails, and they are the ones that financially qualify our clients for services. However, our client engagement team also has been trained and has the ability to provide brief crisis intervention services and to be a direct linkage not only to legal services, right, but also to our social work team and to other community resources. So the reason that I'm here today is because, again, like I said, we're going to talk a lot about how social media and this model of holistic defense and engaging in community advocacy, all of that really goes hand in hand. And that is really what my job is all about. However, the real social media guru and the person who really elevated our social media to the next level and who's going to talk about some more just really specific stuff is Jacqueline Hine. So I will pause for a sec and let Jacqueline go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Hine. I'm the program coordinator for the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office, and I began working with the office in January of 2021 through the University of Dayton Semester of Service program, where I started as a media student intern. And once I graduated in May of 2021 with a marketing degree, I was hired on as a public relations and social media specialist working part-time. And this most recent January of 2022, I was hired full-time as the program coordinator, where I get to still manage our social media platforms, but now I get to be more involved in things like record sealing clinics and data management practices as well. So thank you all for coming today, and I'm really excited to share this presentation with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. So when we kind of get started here, I want to maybe address what I think maybe is, I don't want to call it a bias, but an assumption in the field, and maybe even an assumption in this room, or the question rather, should public defenders' offices really be concerned with social media, right? Is having lots of followers and being very active on social media congruent with the mission of our office or the work that our office is supposed to be doing? And, when I think about this, I think kind of about my own journey into public defense. So like I said, I'm a social worker by trade. I spent the first 8 or 9 years of my career working in the homeless system, and ultimately came to the public defender's office in Montgomery County in November of 2019. I had gotten to know some of the leadership at the office, and they let me know, they're like, hey, Jill, we're trying to implement this new model of holistic defense. We think the first step of that is going to be integrating social workers into our office. The office had never had social workers before 2019. Do you want to come try to get this program started? And I said, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun. And when I started at the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office, there were several people, maybe more than several people in our office that were really curious and maybe kind of concerned and felt that spending very limited resources on a social worker maybe wasn't the best use of their resources, right? Like public defenders' offices are law offices, right? They're supposed to be providing legal services. Why are we adding all of this social work kind of fluff into it? And, what our office found and what I found and what I imagine many of you know is that when our clients come to us, like, yes, they have legal issues, right? They are walking through our doors because they have been charged with crimes. But what we find is that typically these legal issues are not the big issue that our clients are facing. Our clients might be coming to us with felony drug possession charges, but the big problem in their life is that their substance use has become unmanageable, right? Or that they have unmanageable mental health symptoms, maybe that they're experiencing homelessness. They come from, marginalized communities. They've been victims of generational poverty or trauma. And unless we begin to address those issues and those barriers, these clients are going to continue to cycle through our system. And so I think what we learned is yes, in order to truly carry out the mission of the public defender's office, we need to absolutely provide, zealous legal defense, right? But we also need to provide these supportive services that allow our clients to really address the root issue as to why they are getting caught up in the system. And as an office, we got pretty good at that pretty quickly. Our social work program grew. We were reducing the number of days our clients were spending in jail, both pre-trial. We were getting advantageous sentencing outcomes. Clients that had ongoing support services weren't getting in trouble as often. They were stabilizing. They were finding housing. Things were going really, really well. But then what became evident was almost that next layer. And that's where I think this advocacy and social media piece comes in, is that we are all, even though we're doing a really, really good job, even though our attorneys are killing it and our social workers are killing it and our investigators are killing it, we are like a cog in this broken wheel of a broken system that people are continuously getting caught up in. And unless we start doing things as an office, to address the systemic inequality we see both in Montgomery County, in Ohio, in the entire country, our clients are going to continue to get in trouble, to be oppressed, to be marginalized, all of these different things. So when we started having this conversation, we were like, how can we get seats at the table? How can we involve ourselves in community conversations? How can we push for reform? And what we have found and what we continue to do is utilize social media to do that. So again, we truly believe, and what we're going to talk a lot about today, is that social media is like a very cost-effective way for your office to engage your surrounding community. And we witness injustice in the courtroom, in the jails, in conversations with our clients every single day. But our community probably and often doesn't want to know, doesn't want to know. There's some semantics there, right? Doesn't know what's going on. And if the community is not engaged in the injustices happening every single day, we are not going to ever be able to leverage enough support to really push for some of this system level change. So that is what we try to use social media to do, among other things, and what we're going to talk about today. So like I said, we want our social media, and I imagine most people want social media to raise awareness of the services and resources available to the community. So we want our clients to know that, yes, you're a client of the public defender's office, you're going to get an attorney, but you also have the opportunity to have a social worker, to have an investigator on your case. Maybe once your case wraps up a couple of years down the line, you might have access to record sealing services or driver's license reinstatement. And we want our clients to know, we want our prospective clients to know, and we want our community to know. What we also know about the people that we serve is that they are often struggling financially, right? That's why they're here with us in our offices. And social media is free. You do not have to pay a monthly bill for a Facebook account. And often our clients, social media is one of their main forms of communication. So because our office is present and engaged and just right there all the time on social media, we're really improving accessibility for people to be able to reach out and engage with the office, even if they don't have a consistent phone number or a consistent address, right? They can use their friends' phones, their friends' tablets, computers at the library, all of those different things. And then lastly, by being present and engaged on social media, we're really able to kind of control like the face we're putting out in our community. I always say that perception is reality. And if your community and the powers that be in your community are perceiving that you are a player in this game, right? That the public defender's office has things to say about police reform. The public defender's office has things to say, about bail and bond, cash bail and bond, about court costs and fees and fines. When these important conversations are happening in your community, the public defender's office is going to get an invitation to that table. And what we've seen more and more is as our social media presence has grown, we are getting more and more invitations to talk to community members, to engage in panels, to give trainings, because people know, that we're in it, that these are things that our office is concerned with and that we want to fight for. So when we decided, about a year and a half ago, that we really wanted to up our community advocacy and build our social media presence, we asked ourselves these questions. And what I would challenge you guys to do that are here in this training with us is to also ask yourself these questions. What do you want to use your social media platforms to accomplish? I think that answer can really vary. Do you want to use social media just to share really important information about like office closures, office hours, holidays? Do you want to use social media to shout out and to promote really cool things that your staff is doing? Do you want to use your platforms to advocate for change within your county, state, country? Those are the things that you're going to have to ask, because that's going to inform your content creation, which Jackie will talk about a little bit later. I think you want to think about who you want to communicate with, right? Is your social media for your clients? Is it for your community? Is it for defense attorneys everywhere? Is it for anybody in the United States? And then how can you assess your efforts, right? Because building social media does take time. It does take energy. It does take work time. So we want to make sure that what you're doing on social really is congruent with your mission and is contributing, to your mission and your overarching office strategic plan or strategic goals. So we're going to go ahead and answer these questions for us and kind of what we utilize social media to do. So like I've talked a lot about before, we want to make sure our community members have access to resources, whether it's the resources that our office provides to clients, whether it's resources that partner organizations provide to clients, things going on in the court. COVID has been the ever-changing regulations as far as COVID goes. We've used social media to make sure people know when and where they have to wear masks, when and where they're allowed to appear virtually, all of those different things. We focus a lot on voter registration. Everybody in the state of Ohio, as long as you're not incarcerated in a state prison, is allowed to vote, but a lot of people don't know that. So we do a lot of education and advocacy around voting. Like I said, we do record sealing clinics and driver's license reinstatement clinics. There's a lot of movement right now in our community around police reform. They're trying to build a really big, brand new, ginormous jail, and people have feelings about that, right? So there's a lot of talk there, and just criminal justice reform in general. And then again, we utilize our platforms to really give targeted education around the injustices and the problems that we are seeing with our system every single day. We want people to be aware of what's going on, in their tax-funded courtrooms, and we want people to be aware of the different bills and the legislation that are going on in our state that might directly impact our community members. So with whom are we trying to communicate? I am hopeful that after this session or right now, you're creeping around, following and liking our social media pages. And if you do, and if you are, what you're probably seeing is that a lot of the content isn't relevant to you. If you live in California or Florida or New York or something like that, our social media is really geared towards Montgomery County and the surrounding areas, our residents, not only our clients, but also our broader community members. Will that change over time? Maybe we'll go viral, right? And we'll get lots of people following after this training. But right now, the stuff we share, the events we promote, the legislation we're talking about is all typically very, very local. And that's just because that's our answer, right? To with whom are we trying to communicate? I imagine we have some people from some really big offices that are kind of leaders in the field. You guys might be communicating to a much broader audience, right, than we are here in Dayton, Ohio. And I think that's something to think about. We also, have made the decision in the last couple of years to increase the number of different platforms that we're on. So in 2019, we were only on Facebook. Facebook is huge in Dayton. I hear from people that come to Dayton. They're like, why is everybody on Facebook all the time? But maybe Facebook isn't big in your area, right? Maybe more people are on Instagram or Twitter. But what we found is that different demographics utilize these platforms, in different ways. So by being present on all of them, we've been able to capture people of all ages, people that maybe don't believe in having socials at all, but they only have LinkedIn accounts. We want to be able to capture really everyone who might be a potential stakeholder in the work that we're doing. And then lastly, how can we assess our efforts? So Jackie and I look at our numbers every single month. We look at people who like our pages, who follow our pages. We look at which posts have more interaction and engagement, right? Because that's our community's way of telling us, hey, we want to hear more about this. We look at the enrollment in programs that we advertise on social media, and just the engagement with our community partners on social media as well. And, by tracking all of that and sharing all of that, that's how we're able to fund Jackie's position and all of these different things, right? So we make sure that we're constantly using this as a tool for growth for our office, and also assessing to make sure the community is engaging with and liking, what we're putting out there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jackie to talk just a little bit more about some of the specifics around our social media content.
Thank you. So when we go through these questions that Jill's talking about, when we're looking for ways to assess our efforts, those are the things that are going to allow us to build direction and consistency with our audience, and more importantly, our community as a whole. So starting off with talking about branding, why does it matter? You're driving on a highway, you're looking for an exit to get something to eat, and on an exit sign in the distance, you see a little red and yellow box. There's going to be a McDonald's there, right? Within an instant, you are able to see oh, I can get off here and there'll be something for me to eat. It's that kind of immediate recognition that we want to build with our community, because it helps us to better define ourselves, better communicate our goals. And what it's going to do that's most important is help our community members identify our content as something immediately relevant to them, right? And then from there, we can grow a relationship with our target audience. Once that familiarity is established, they'll take more time into hearing what we have to say. So some tips for building your brand, starting with visuals. So you'll notice throughout this entire presentation, and when you hopefully go check out our social media platforms after this, you'll notice we use the same colors, the blues, the yellows, and even the fonts. This is the same font we use for our social media posts. And even beyond just our presentations and what we put out to the public, we use them internally as well. Our logos, we put them on internal forms, we put them on our website. And then focus, this is where you're really going to want to establish criteria to determine what content is relevant for your organization's needs. And what that looks like for us is topics relating to advocacy, achievements of our office and staff, the celebration of our partners and the work they're doing, and educating our community on policy and resources that are available to them. And you want to make sure that when you're going through and establishing that criteria, that these topics really align with your, again, your organization's specific goal and purpose. Moving on to relationships, and this is something we'll talk a lot about throughout the presentation. You really want to pay close attention to this, and you can connect using social media with other public defenders' offices. What are they doing? What do they have going on that we can pull from or even work on together? Partner organizations in your community. We do a lot of work with the Dayton Human Relations Council, the Montgomery County Jail Coalition. We promote their events, or some of our staff and attorneys speak at their events and they promote ours in return. So building relationships is a really stable and easy way to broaden your audience and broaden the scope of the mission that you're working on currently. So consistent visuals. I'll go ahead and explain this collage of images you're seeing on the right here. So that top row is what we publish on days when our office is closed. So you can see our logo in the background, that same font, and then in the middle of each is just a different holiday when our office is closed. In the middle, you'll see this is the template we use for when we share articles. So this is, again, becomes important when you're following other organizations like ACLU, NASW, or NAPD, when they share articles that are relevant to your organization's audience, you can go ahead and share those as well to your audience. And on the bottom, you'll see these are posts that we share whenever there's an upcoming event, whether they're hosted by our office or, again, a partner organization. And you'll see in the bottom right there, there's a little headshot of one of our attorneys who spoke at a Know Your Rights event for the Dayton Human Relations Council. And that was something that the Dayton Human Relations Council ended up sharing to their social media platforms as well. So when you're able to work together, building and maintaining relationships within your community, it just really goes a long way in broadening the scope of your reach. So not only does having these consistent visuals in place work towards that consistency in the relationships we want to build with our community, but it also kills two birds with one stone, really, and that it is crucial for time management. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you want to go and post something on Instagram or Facebook or what have you. You can just change the text in the middle of the page, like with the holiday posts. If it's Veterans Day, all I have to do is retype the word and out it goes onto social media. So those are two really important things with consistent visuals. Content focus. So again, these images on the right, you'll see a flyer for National Overdose Awareness Day, or a memorial vigil for the homelessness, or the bottom right here is an article we shared pertaining to cash bail and bond reform. And all of these things, what they have in common is that they are things that directly affect our clients and staff. Our clients are often homeless or facing addiction or directly impacted by bail policy. And all of these topics are touching on things that are in need of change, right? And we all know that change is not something that happens overnight, but having all of these media platforms in place, having the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, and what have you, and posting it on each one of them helps us chip away at the change that we're working towards every day in our office, right? And this is where I'd also like to talk a little bit about the use of stories. So some of you may not be very familiar with stories. They're particularly popular on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're on Instagram, it's those little circles at the top that you can swipe right through. So when we share these resources with our community, or if we have an event, like right now, we have a record sealing clinic going on, and we usually share a post about it once a week, right? But sometimes if you see something you want to pay more attention to, you'll say, oh, I'll go ahead and register for that later. You scroll past it and you forget. I know I'm guilty of it. So how do we remind our audience that these resources are available without being too aggressive? Because we all have friends who maybe overuse Facebook and post too much. And what do? We scroll right past what they have to say. So the use of stories becomes a really helpful tool in that it's a less aggressive, less in your face way to remind your audience that these events or these resources are going on or available. we've had stories in one day reach 1,600 people. And when you partner with an organization, or it's a partnering organization's event strictly, if they're sharing it too, the scope you reach doubles so quickly and so easily. So that's just something to keep in mind. I know that's when you're just starting off, it might be more difficult to even remember doing it, but that's definitely something you want to keep in your back pocket. All right, so relationships, and I've said this a few times already, but it's not always the what, it can also be the who. In these images, you'll see with the Montgomery County Jail Coalition, and again, the Dayton HRC, these are events that we've collaborated on. Our attorneys have spoken at Montgomery County Jail Coalition meetings. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the Know Your Rights event with the Dayton Human Relations Council. So you can see they've mentioned us in their story. We've shared their events, even if we aren't participating directly in it. It's a really great way to streamline planning and resource collaboration. And when you are selecting the organizations that you are working with, you want to make sure that ultimately their goals align with yours, right? That you're working towards the same thing. So structuring communication and messaging. So we've already talked about what we want to do. This is definitely more related to the how. How are we going to reach the people who are going to benefit from what we have to say and make it accessible to them? So when we sit down and decide what we want to focus on, everything that we share on our social media pages will fall into at least one, if not multiple, of these categories. And those are going to be advocating for systemic change, highlighting achievements, celebrating our partners, and education and advocacy. So starting off with advocating for systemic change, our office's strategic plan is to address systemic issues affecting our client and staff. And this bulleted list are the issues that we've identified as the most pressing. So eliminating cash bail and bond and reducing court costs and fines, police reform, addressing systemic racism, and the decriminalization of addiction, mental health, and poverty. These are all things that are going to affect our clients and our staff, right? So whenever we see articles that other organizations are sharing or updates on policy reform, events, demonstrations, training opportunities on these topics, we're able to share them. And again, this becomes where it's really important to maintain those relationships that we're building in our community, so that again, making these resources as available and as accessible as possible so that we can work towards the change together. So on your left, you'll see a post from our bail reform campaign, and on the right, you'll see a post from our court fines and costs campaign. And immediately when you look at it, what do you see? You see in big red letters, this is costing you as a taxpayer $4,000. And up until a year ago, I don't have a legal background. I'm a business student, business major, but I can understand that $4,000 is not something I want to waste, right? So you want to make sure that when you're structuring your messages, you want to include how it directly affects your regular quote unquote community members. You want to break these things down for them, make it understandable and accessible and pertinent to them. Moving on to highlighting achievements. So this is where we honor the achievements of our employees and the work we're able to accomplish together. We have a thing we call staff spotlights, where usually once a week, we will have one of our staff members have a picture and a little all about me bio on them and what they do in the office. And that's a really good way to familiarize our office staff with each other, especially for new hires. That's very useful to them and getting assimilated into our office. And we also take it a step further into commending our staff for courtroom wins, no matter how big or small. Recognizing those professional achievements and awards is really good for boosting office morale. When you turn on the news today, it's not a secret that most of the things you're going to hear are negative, right? So giving our office something to celebrate, no matter how big or small, kind of helps just reorient everyone to the mission, kind of keeps us focused on like why we're here, why we're doing this. And yeah. So this is the examples. On the right is the staff spotlight. And you'll see this one was for an attorney named Molly. And on the left, you'll see this is where we celebrate our courtroom wins using a post that we refer to as the defense never rests. So this, I want to take a minute to talk about this hashtag, the defense never rests. So this is a trend that's already really popular within public defense media. So when you're building your social media platforms from the start, plugging into a movement or a tag that's already bigger than yours is a really great way to increase the flow of web traffic to your platforms, to your pages, because it already has that kind of following. And again, we like to include the headshots of our staff members and attorneys, because it really does a lot with humanizing what we're doing. You know, we're putting our advocacy into action. It makes it more personal. And again, like I said before, it kind of just familiarizes everyone with each other, whether it's within our office or with the partners we're working with or our general community population. So moving on to celebrating partners, kind of celebrating what we're doing to what either we're accomplishing with our community partners or what they're able to accomplish by themselves, right? So record sealing clinics, amnesty programs, community giveaways and events, community forums on social and criminal justice issues, and community partner spotlight. So you'll see more of this on the next slide in the examples, but we do something that's called the Agency of the Month, where we have a board in place. Yeah, thank you, Jill. So this board that you see right here on the right, that board is physically present within our office, right? So it goes a step to educate the office on, this one was for Brightview, which provides outpatient addiction treatment services. But when we share it to our social media pages, like I said, we're taking it a step further to educate the community. And it's also important to note here the use of templates. This Agency of the Month is a template that we use. And each month when Jill goes in and updates the board, she snaps me a picture of it. I upload it into this image and change the name of the organization, out it goes again. So just another way, like you can cater the templates to your organization's specific needs, but you can really get creative with the types of things you want to do. And again, just to hone in on that consistency effort with your audience. And on the left here is a notice of an upcoming event. One of our attorneys was speaking at this event, and usually we do include the headshots because if a staff member is participating, we again want to humanize it to better show our support for that organization, the work our attorney is doing, and again, just humanize the whole of our work. So education and advocacy, this is our fourth one. So this is where we really want to make the resources and make the information accessible. We want to keep people up to date on policy change, make sure they understand how policy is relevant to them, breaking it down, again, making it understandable. I can't stress enough how important that is. Empowering community members to share their stories and opinions. So having all of these platforms in place, having that comprehensive list of resources for them creates a space where they can discuss these tougher topics and issues, where they can raise their questions. And then once we go ahead and work to expose the realities of the criminal justice system, this really aligns with our goal of systemic change, right? You know, with our cash bail and bond campaign, we had a post about people being held on less than $100 bonds. You know, people don't realize how that directly affects them and how that is directly related to the use or the misuse of funds. You know, we want to give them that space to be shocked, that space to ask questions. And hopefully the momentum built through that kind of reaction will assist with our other goals geared more towards policy change. So on the left, this is a post that we launched for our record sealing clinic last spring. And we do a lot of education around our record sealing clinics, you know, eligibility criteria, what record sealing is, and how to access it, because a lot of people don't even know what it is or how to take advantage of that kind of resource. So by doing these educational campaigns, we're able to rein them in. And if they don't qualify or they aren't eligible, we're able to direct them to a resource they can take advantage of. So but when we are able to redirect them using these posts, they're able to get resources they might otherwise not have known about. And on the right, there's a register to vote campaign post. So educating people on where and how to register. You know, we want to remind people that they are eligible to vote despite their legal history. You know, in Ohio, there's no restrictions on voting. So if we're giving our community the how, the when, and the where, and kind of taking away the guesswork for them, because it's easy to say, oh, I probably don't qualify, I'm not even going to bother. But if we, you know, make it directly visible to them, hey, you're eligible, here's how to go ahead and register, here's where you have to go, here's where you can go if you can't go here, you know, giving them all the options, all the information goes a long way in their voter registration. So these are all of our existing social media platforms. Now is a really good time if you're able to, if you want to take out your phone and take a picture of the screen, but this is also available on the slide handout we've attached in Sched. Again, for us, Facebook is the most popular, but otherwise our Instagram is a close second. And currently we're working on really growing our YouTube. That's really new for us. And seeing as YouTube is currently the most popular social media platform in the world, that's definitely something we're going to be focusing on in the future. So make sure you stay tuned and go subscribe for that. But that's all I have today. So thank you for, again, coming to our session. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our presentation on advocacy through social media.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. And I'll give everybody another couple seconds if you want to look at our platforms or just kind of check those out. And what I would like to potentially do, you know, we talk a lot about how we need to celebrate our staff wins, our engagement with other providers, other public defenders' offices, other organizations. And so Jackie and I are pretty excited that we got to present and spend time here with you today. So we would, if people are willing and able, we would like to take a little screenshot of everyone. So if you want to turn your camera on, if it's a little early and you don't want to turn your camera on, we're cool with your name as well. But we would like to take a screenshot of us in here today so we can share with our community and with other providers that we were able to spend time with you guys this morning. Oh, yay, a bunch of you are coming on. I didn't think you would. So this is exciting. So Jackie, you want me to do a countdown for us and then we'll take it? All right, everybody, let's fix our hair. We'll look good for the thing. All right, we'll go 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you, Jackie, for taking that. And then I do think we had a couple questions come through the chat. So Jamie, do you want to maybe throw those first couple questions out there and then we'll open it up?
Yeah, that's great. We've got a number of questions here. The first one came from Garrett. It says, as an old head, I struggle with design, especially cross-platform. Any tips for quick design of visuals?
I can speak to this one if you're, so
yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
I saw in the chat that someone had already mentioned Canva. Canva is a really great resource for kind of coming up with templates real quick. They have some in place for you already. They do like the backgrounds, the fonts, the text. All you have to do is insert your message. And that's a really quick and easy way to kind of get the ball rolling on getting those templates in place.
And I think one thing to add on there too, so like if you pay for the Canva Pro, which is not that much money at all, what is it, Jack? Like maybe like $100 a year or something. So if you pay for that Canva Pro, you can like pick your brand colors and your brand fonts and like upload your logo, and it is super user friendly. I am not a super computer savvy person at all, and Canva has changed my entire world and my entire life, not only what we do at the office, but also what I do just in different, like, you know, advocacy and volunteer things I do in my spare time. We utilize Canva, and they'll save all your color codes, they'll save all your fonts, they'll save all your templates, like Jackie said. So we highly, highly, highly recommend Canva. And if anybody else has any other resources, maybe like things that are like Canva, please drop those in the chat as well.
Great. The next question we have is from Elena. Do you only share the reminder type of posts as a story on Instagram? How do you recommend sharing a story on Instagram or Facebook?
So when we post to our story, it typically I'd say 80% of the time, it is going to be a reminder for an upcoming event or like a deadline for voter registration or registration for a record sealing clinic. And we post reminders to our page about once a week, but usually we'll sandwich them in between stories on either side. So let's say we post reminders on our Facebook page on Wednesdays, like every Wednesday for a month. Right now, we're posting a reminder for our record sealing clinic registration. So maybe on the Monday and the Saturday surrounding it, we'll post to our story as a reminder. If that makes sense. It's kind of, so there's 2 reminders in place in a week within 1 week. So you'll have the post on Wednesday, reminder on Saturday, and another reminder on like Monday. Because Saturday is for us when our platforms are most active. Our community members who are following us, they use Facebook, they use Instagram the most on Saturdays. So that's also something to definitely pay attention to. And I should also mention that Facebook has that built into its analytics. It'll tell you when your followers are most active and recommend times for posting. So it's called Meta Business Suite. It's like if you have open a Facebook business page or a business account, it has it already built in there for you. So you won't have to go collect any numbers really or anything like that. They make it really easy.
One thing I would add too is we also, besides reminders, I would say the majority of our stories besides that are like when our partners post something that we think is like really relevant. But maybe again, like Jackie said, we're not trying to clog everybody's news feed with the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office posting 4 posts a day. So like, for example, yesterday was St. Patty's Day, and our county did like a free Uber ride, right? So like the sheriff's office and all these different places pooled all this money and said, don't drink and drive, call this number and you can get a $20 voucher for a free Uber or Lyft. And so was that important? Yes, because we want to prevent people getting OVIs, right? But did we want to do a whole nother share about that? No. So we quick just shared that post to our story. So it was still kind of promoting it. It was still helping their page get the boosts, right? And reach more people, but we weren't, giving it all of that real estate on our page. So I think that's really, when you say, Jackie, that's like the other way that we utilize stories, is to share other people's stuff that we don't necessarily think warrants like a whole share on our page.
Right.
Okay, the next question we got is from Kyle. It's kind of a 3-part question, 3 questions. So I'll take them one at a time if that sounds good. Has your office or individual attorneys faced reprisals from vindictive prosecutors and judges who are angry that you advocate for broader criminal justice reform, or who take personal offense that you highlight the intrinsic inequality in cash bail, plea bargaining, and sentencing disparity?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. So we have definitely had a couple posts that made some people within our system upset. For example, the campaign about the cash bail and bond ruffled some feathers, right? Because we basically said, at one point, like posed, like, why are prosecutors asking for bail, right? On criminal trespasses, right? Why are we doing things like that? And that got a couple calls to our office. I think the biggest outrage was over the fact that we did, so for like an entire month, we did a campaign where it's like, this many people are being held on less than $500. This many people are being held on less than $100, and just kind of like bombarded the community with it. And then we did another campaign a couple months later where we looked at the racial disparities of children being held in juvenile court, because we get the reports every morning of how many kids are in juvenile detention. And as you guys can probably imagine, the vast majority of children every single day were Black young men. And we just started sharing that. We said, like, of 11 children detained yesterday, 9 of them were Black men. Like of 15, 13 of them were Black men. And that made people very, very angry and upset. And that's something you have to talk to leadership about. And luckily our leadership was like, well, I mean, nothing we did is untrue. Like nothing we said is untrue. It is what it is. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, maybe you need to look at what you're doing. And so I would caution there, just to make sure that your information is factual, that you are double checking when you're trying to do some pushing of the envelope type posts. But yeah, we've definitely had backlash. We have had trials or like motions and things like that our attorneys have won, but they were so contentious that they asked us not to share them on social because they were worried about the backlash towards their client or how it might have an effect on another case. And then we absolutely, would honor that. And we ask for anybody's permission before talking about any type of courtroom win, just to make sure it wouldn't have blowback on the client.
And then the next question is, in light of advisory ethical opinions from state Supreme Courts, which I take to say that they will come after attorneys for participating in political speech online, do you have specific office policies about what you can like and share? And I guess that's on a personal staff basis.
So we do not really have any policies about what our specific attorneys and staff do on their personal pages. We definitely, we have to be really thoughtful and we have to check with our commission and our county and things like that on certain, obviously we don't ever endorse like specific political candidates. We're not allowed to do that. We do have to be thoughtful about that. And that's conversation that we have in leadership as well. Like Jackie talked a lot about, we partner a lot with the Montgomery County Jail Coalition because we don't think we need to spend, what is it, like 3 million billion, God knows how many dollars on a new jail. But we cannot be an official partner of theirs because of that reason, because of that conflict of interest, right? Because we as a county agency cannot be a partner against another county agency, right? Which is the sheriff's department. So that's just something I think you really have to be thoughtful about with leadership and think about how far you're willing to push it.
Great. I think that covered the third question as well about endorsing political candidates. Mm-hmm. So the next question we have from David is, have you worked with appellate or post-conviction offices that want to develop a social media profile, and how might it differ from the PD context?
Yeah, so I mean, the short answer to that is no, we have not really done that. We do appellate work in our office. But I would think it would differ. I think you would need to ask yourself those same questions, right? Like, is it something where you want people to be aware of the implications, right? Of some of these appeals or some of this legislative work or policy work? Would you want to do it around education? If things are in the appeal process, I'm sure you have to be careful about what information you're sharing. I'm not really an attorney, so I'm not exactly sure. But I think, to me, it would go back to like asking yourself those three questions, right? Who do you want to know this information? Who are you trying to communicate to? What do you want to share? Like, what about the work that you're doing is relevant and important for the community to know, and structuring your messaging around that.
Great. And the next question is from Mai, asking if you ever do lives and if you've done them on Facebook or Instagram, and if you have a preference.
I don't think we've ever done a live.
We did a live one time, Jackie, before you, when we did, our office hosted and organized a Black Lives Matter march, and we marched up to the courthouse, and one of our attorneys did a speech in front of it, and we lived that. But I think that's it. And I think we did it on Facebook. And again, like Facebook truly has like a cult following in Dayton. People in Dayton love the Facebook. So I would think probably in most places you would want to lean towards Instagram, don't you think, Jackie? But maybe here you would do Facebook. I don't know.
Yeah, I think especially considering the demographic of like public defender's offices in general, I think Facebook might be a good starting place to test the waters, and then moving to Instagram once you see successes there would be a safe bet to take that route.
Then we have another question kind of relating to the differences between the platforms from Elena. Do you post differently on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter when you make posts? In her office, they post the same on all three platforms. And says, I'm unsure how helpful that is unless people stick to one platform more than the others.
Generally speaking, we keep our posts the same across platforms. But if we're sharing a flyer, like for the Ohio Governor's Expedition Pardon Project, pardon me, no pun intended. But we'll usually just share the flyer to Facebook. For Instagram, I will absolutely put that flyer into a template, because on Instagram, when you view someone's profile, you can see every picture at once, right? That's not as common on Facebook. People don't normally go through your photos looking for consistency. You're usually just scrolling through a profile's timeline or their news feed. But on Instagram, having images that are similar, having those consistencies visually is something that just kind of, it looks more professional. It builds legitimacy and trust. So that's where the only difference I could think of really comes from is we might not always post a template onto our Facebook or our Twitter, but always on Instagram.
And I think we don't do LinkedIn as often, right? We don't post LinkedIn every day. I think we have select which things we put on LinkedIn.
Okay, that's all the questions that we have in the chat. There's a little bit of conversation here about the NAPD's communicator group keeping a collection of various social media policies from different offices. So I'm not sure if y'all are aware of that, but otherwise, if you want to open it up for, people to unmute and ask questions at this point, we've got about 7 minutes left.
Yeah, absolutely. If people have anything else, and please feel free to come off mute, or, if you have a specific question. What I will do is I will drop my email in the chat, and I'll have Jackie drop hers, so that if you guys have, some more specific questions, or if you would like to see templates, or, anything we can do to be of service to you guys, right? We're not trying to make anybody reinvent the wheel. So we'll drop our information in the chat as well. But yeah, please, if anybody has any questions or comments, or if people have experiences of things that work really well on social media for them, we would love to hear from you as well.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
I thought what you guys were talking about in terms of clients reaching out on social media. And I was curious how often that happens and the context in which people maybe start reaching out to you on social media.
Yeah, I would say it happens fairly regularly, maybe once or twice a month. We also have a way for clients to contact us via our website, which happens as well. I think sometimes people go social to website to contact, but a lot of times it's people who they just themselves or a loved one has just been arrested or gotten a citation. And, often what we need to do is just provide them a little information on how the process works. Sometimes people reach out for non-criminal matters. And then we're able to direct them to the right resources or do a warm handoff to, a legal aid or immigration attorney or something like that. But yeah, we definitely get it that way. We've had clients message our Facebook and be like, tell my attorney I missed the bus, but I'm coming, right? And I've been able to call the attorney and let them know. So yeah, our clients definitely use it. And I think what we see more than current clients using it is people who maybe have had histories of convictions, really utilizing our services to ask about pardons and expungements and sealings and driver's license type stuff. That's where I think when we talk about our client interaction, it's really coming from those people that are maybe a couple years out from their involvement within the system. And they're just curious about how that affects their rights, right? In terms of voting and sealing and things like that.
I think that's another thing worth noting is that social media helps us meet clients where they are. Jill had said, they're able to use them from a friend's phone or the community library, that's normal to them, going on their phone and being able to use Facebook to say, hey, this is what's going on. Just having that another way to communicate with them is never going to act adversely, right? I think that's just something worth noting.
Mm-hmm. What's up, Kyle?
On the Defense Never Rests post, Do you usually keep them like at this macro level that it's like one, not guilty at trial, or with the client's permission, do you ever tell them more specific, circumstances or facts about cases that seem like indicative of a broader thing?
So normally we'll do a shout out to the first name of the attorney, investigator, and social work, depending on who they had on their defense team. And we typically do not use clients' names because the feedback we get from clients is that they just don't want their names on there. We did have a case where there was a motion to suppress that we won, and the judge really grossly kind of exploited this client and did this whole press release, and the news like flashed his mug shot up. It was a really horrible and egregious and selfish thing for this judge to do. And we did do a public statement on social media where we wrote a whole big long thing about what happened, why we did, win the motion to suppress, and why what the judge did was absolutely deplorable. But really that's really typically, we would only ever do it in a situation like that, or where we had a client's permission. We wanted to do something where a client got sentenced to 30 days in jail for using marijuana, even though she has a medical marijuana card and it's legal in the state of Ohio to use medical marijuana, but the judge treated it like a probation violation and made her serve 30 days local. And we really wanted to share that, but she didn't want to, so we couldn't, right? So yeah, that's kind of what we take into consideration.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got another question in the chat from Elena. You may have mentioned this, but do you share a different post every single day? What kind of frequency for posts have you found works best for your office?
We do post every day, and sometimes and more recently, we've more consistently been posting on weekends as well. I would definitely recommend, once you start to kind of build your following, posting maybe once a day. It's okay to miss a day. We've done that. There's just sometimes nothing to say, and that's okay. But kind of establishing yourself on social media that way, that again, all about that consistency. I think that definitely helps our office. And
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you can go.
I was just gonna say, and we post at the same time every day too. We found that we get the best response earlier in the morning. And so I think, like Jackie said, with that consistency, people know that they're going to see something from the public defender's office every morning at 8 a.m. So I think that does help. And how much time do we dedicate to social media work daily or weekly? What would you say, Jackie? Maybe about 4 hours a week between us?
Yeah, I'd say so, because we spend maybe 20 minutes planning social media alone. And then I'm the one who makes the visuals, the graphics, and the drafts. And I'm able to do a week's worth in one sitting. It's not super time consuming, and it does do a lot. So big proponent.
Yeah.
And then finally, there's just a comment here from Ami. I work primarily with teenage clients, and Messenger via social appears to be primary communication as opposed to phone numbers.
Yes, and because Messenger is free, right? And they can do it from all different devices. Absolutely. And same for our adult clients too. We get a lot of Facebook message requests as well.
Yeah, Facebook Messenger is definitely the most popular media that clients use to communicate with us, at least in Montgomery County. We get virtually none through Twitter, and I'd say Instagram is pretty close, if not nothing. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you both for being here today. Thank you everyone for attending. And Jill and Jacqueline have put their emails in the chat, and you can also get all the information from Sketch as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.